So the new HYROX season has officially started and it's off to a flyer. The first race of the 2022-23 season took place in Basel at the weekend on the 10th of September, and it saw some seriously good competitors getting some seriously good times, including the 3 new world records. If you were there, let us know in the comments how it was, how you found the race, how the venue was, any big changes for this season. Let us know in the comments below. In this video, I'll tell you about some of the winners of the event and also look at some of the stats around the race times and so on. So if we start with some of the winners, I apologise now in advance for the pronunciation of some of these names. But in the women's pro division, the world record was broken by Linda Meyer. She set a time of 63 minutes and 29 seconds, beating Lauren Week's previous record by 14 seconds. Second was Miriam von Reur, who did the wall balls unbroken at the end. And third was Sophia Kaiser, who holds the world record in the women's open division and up until this weekend held the world record in the women's doubles as well. She was making her debut in the pro division and she finished third. The men's pro race also saw a lot of high quality athletes competing, many of which you'd have seen in the elite races in Las Vegas World Championships in May 2022. Ultimately, it was won by Tobias Lautwein, who had missed out on those elite races in Vegas due to illness. Second was Tom Hogan, who broke the 60-minute mark for the first time, setting a PB. And then third was Geoffrey Voisin in a time of 1 hour and 54 seconds. Michael Sandbach had been in second place in the race up to the lunges, but had to pull out due to injury during those lunges, but he was well on for breaking the 60-minute mark. Another world record was broken in the men's open division by Alphonse de Ruiz with an incredible time of 56 minutes and 34 seconds. Second was Kieran Parkinson in 58.29 and Christian Nold in third in 58.30. Kieran and Christian's times were the third and fourth best times ever in the men's open. So this was a seriously fast race. And finally, in the individual events, the women's open was won by Anne Stellard with a time of 1 hour, 7 minutes and 24 seconds. And second was Diane Luthi, and third was Christine Schweizer. In the doubles, yet another world record was broken. This time it was the women's doubles where Jane Thompson and Rafaela Stefik won in 56.58, beating the previous record by 21 seconds. The men's doubles was won by Karsten Kula and Johannes Gugula in 56.07, and the mixed doubles was won by Fabian Weisenberger and Mandy Moller in 1:04.38. Well done, everyone. And again, I sincerely apologize for how I pronounced many of their names. Okay, let's look at some of the data. So we'll start with the sleds. So before the event, there was some speculation as to how the sleds would perform. There's completely new sleds in HYROX this year. They're going to be standardized across the globe. Previously, there've been slightly different sleds used in Europe compared to America, and that caused some controversy. But we've got completely standardized sleds this year. And I was told that it would be the Europeans that might notice the greatest amount of difference, as the sleds were most similar to what had been used in America previously. But I've looked at the data. I've looked at the top 10 sled push times by division, so by men and women, pro and open, and taken the median of those times, and then compared them to some previous events. So on the face of it, the sleds looked like they were faster than what we saw in London in April 2022, though those London sleds were relatively slow. And they're very comparable to what we saw in Manchester in January 2022. And I would say, broadly speaking, they seem very similar to your average European sled that we saw last year. So I don't think in Europe we're going to see any drastic differences to the sled push on the face of it. Anyone who I've spoken to that was at Basel would broadly agree with that analysis, that it felt, broadly similar to your average European sled, similar to Manchester. The only thing I would add is that a few people have mentioned to me that the sled pulls did feel particularly tough. I think maybe there were some new ropes being used. They felt particularly slippery. So do remember to chalk your hands before the sled pull at the next event. In terms of the overall performance in Basel, I think most people are expecting the standard of athletes, the finishing times to improve this year. And that's certainly looking to be the case. As already mentioned, there were 3 world records set in Basel, and 4 of the fastest ever 7 times in the men's open were set in the race. Data-wise, I've looked at the top 10 times in each of the men's and women's pro and open categories and taken the median time of those and then compared those to Manchester. The reason being that Manchester seemed like a fairly standard race, and we know that the sleds performed broadly the same as in Manchester. So that's less than 9 months ago, that race. And the median time in Basel improved in all categories with the exception of the women's open. Obviously, take this with a pinch of salt. It's hugely dependent on what athletes show up on the day, but it does look like people are getting faster. And certainly, if you want to qualify for the World Championships this year, then I think you're probably going to have to go faster than what you did last year. Finally, I'll finish off with something for the real HYROX data geeks out there, of which I might be the only one, but I'll share it anyway. So I thought I'd see how someone's performance on the exercise stations correlated with their overall finishing position. So I took the 10 best finishers in the men's pro and the 10 best finishers in the women's pro and looked at how they performed relative to each other on each of the stations and the running. And then I've used the correlation function in Excel, essentially, to see how closely those correlated to their finishing positions. And then I've put that into this graph. And I found it fairly interesting. It's easy to think that HYROX is a running event and the sleds play a hugely important part, and they do. I don't think there's any denying that, and I don't think this data changes that. But it was interesting to see that the farmers' carries and the rowing had the greatest correlation to someone's finishing position out of all the exercises and the running. Now, you can interpret that as you wish. I don't think that means that they've suddenly become the most important stations for you to focus on. But it is interesting, and like I say, interpret it as you wish. Let us know in the comments what you think about it. So that's pretty much it for this review. Let me know what you thought. Is this useful? Do you want to see more of these throughout the season as we get to more races? And as already mentioned, if you were there, let us know in the comments how you found the event. And give this a like and a subscribe, please. It helps a lot. Thanks. Talk to you soon.